Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome to another Age of Mythology, the Titans editor tutorial. And this video will be dedicated to show you how to make a proper cinematic in Age of Mythology. The first thing you have to do is to go to options and select allow camera rotation. This will be very crucial to get the perfect camera cut and angles on your characters in the cinematic. Then after you do this, you click OK and go to the editor. From this menu, you go around and create your own scene. I've already created mine. It will be a recreation of the level 3 of Age of Mythology, when General Meleagus learns that the Atlanteans have attacked the Greek colony and he gets frustrated. So this is the scene we are going to make. It's a nice scene that took me 1 minute to make, literally, but of course put more details in your scenario. That's not the point of the tutorial. When you are dealing with cinematics, there is a few shortcuts you need to know. The first one is Alt Shift and C. Alt Shift and C allows you to unlock the camera. When you unlock it, there is also new shortcuts that you can use to be able to gain perfect angles on your characters. For example, there is A and Z, which moves the camera up and down. There is also page up and page down. You can see what they does. They are similar to A and Z, but a bit different. There is a mouse wheel, which you can rotate the camera. Also, there is a plus and minus sign. The mouse wheel and the plus and minus sign, you could use them without unlocking the camera. And also, if you want to return to normal view, you can press Alt, Shift and C again. So when you want to do a cinematic, don't forget these short keys, because it's very important to use them. The first thing we'll want to do is to get a nice camera cut on our characters. So the first thing we'll want to do is to use a mouse wheel to rotate the camera a little bit. And we'll use the plus sign to get a nice zoom on the scene. And also we can use Z and A to adjust our camera. After we do this, we'll go to the cinematic menu and select camera editor. This menu now is very unique. It is a bit confusing for beginners, but I will try to explain it as much as I can. If you want to have a camera track, you select insert and a new track will be created. Now there is one by default, so we'll use it. The first track will be the general entrance. You can rename your tracks. You don't need to press enter for this one. And you set a duration for your track. Now my track will be 7 seconds, I think is alright. Now we'll delete this point. The point 0 will be each point you can think of them like where the camera is. So point 0 will be the position of the camera when we pressed the insert button. And now we are going to add a waypoint. So the other waypoint we want it to be near the gate. So the general will be walking with his myrmidons through the gate, like in a position right there. And also we want to modify a little bit the angle of the camera. So we'll use the scroll wheel. And we'll add a second point. Now the Age of Mythology, the editor, will try to link these two waypoints together in a way that will create, like if you want a camera motion. So as you can see, it's not all bad. Let's see with the letterbox bar. So you should be able to see them walking. Yes, so here we have our first track. Now we may have only one camera track, but we'll add further tracks as we move on in the tutorial. So now we'll work with the triggers. The first trigger we'll want to add, we'll name it Cinematic Beginning. The condition will be always. We'll want it to run immediately because we want to see the cinematic immediately, not after 4 seconds. We'll add an effect, Cinematic Mode. The Cinematic Mode is responsible for showing you the black bars, the subtitles, and making the hoplite look like the hoplite you know from the cinematic. So yeah. And we also add the trigger camera track to be able to show our track, and you select your first track. Now we'll work with the subtitles. You have two options for subtitles, they are nearly the same. So you have either sound file name or play dialogue. They're both the same, they work as you expect. So we'll use sound file name. The sound, you can browse Age of Mythology for sounds, or you can add custom sounds. It doesn't really matter, so you can select any sound from the sound folder. I think it's in my documents, but I'm not really 100%, but it should be in my documents. You add your custom sounds, and you can add also sounds that already exist in the campaign. So there, as you can see, there is many sounds, and we could also add the sound from the third level, but I won't do this. The trigger is not really important for a beginner tutorial. Now the subtitle, we will add something along the lines like Myrmidon, move, let the general through. So something like this. Now you can also add a portrait, but if you want to see how you write portraits, you can go to any of the level. So for example level 3, and see which portraits I added. There is a path to them. You can go and copy paste them if you want. I'll show you how. So let's go to IOMX3, and it should be somewhere in the cinematic where you see a sound file name or something like this. Yes. So here I haven't added a subtitle, but some of them do have a portrait, I mean. So play dialogue. This one doesn't have a portrait, but yeah, you can search for the ones that does have a portrait, and you can copy them. So let's reload our level. Now we'll also add a trigger, move to point. There. We'll select our general, or we select our whole army if you want. They are the source unit, and the set area will make them move something along there. Be sure to see the area after you select it. And yeah, that should be all. Now we'll add another condition, timer. This one will be launched after 7 seconds, so when our track ends, and we'll use the cinematic mode off. It is very important that you do cinematic mode off, or else the black bars and the look for the hoplites will stay the same for the whole level, and you don't want that. You want, when the cinematic is finished, to reverse back to normal. So this is very important. Now if you want to add another track, we'll change this duration. So we'll name it cinematic end. There is a way without having to calculate the whole duration of the tracks. You can use fire events if you want, but for the purpose of this video, we'll leave it as it is now. And it should be working if we play test our scenario. So it is indeed working. Now you can't skip the scenario, you can't do nothing for now. I'll show you how to do it. Now we'll go back to camera editor and add another track. So this is general talk, or the hoplite. It will be the whole conversation. So we'll name it conversation, and it will be about, let's say, 20 seconds, 15 seconds, 15 seconds. Now the waypoint, we should delete this now and set our waypoint. So we wanted something zoomed like this, perhaps like this angle. Yeah, that should do the trick. And we'll name it dialogue or something like this, and 15 seconds, and we only want to add one waypoint. So yeah, it will be just a small talk. So we'll go to triggers, and we'll name it dialogue. Now here I'll show you how to add animations. So we set the condition timer. It's going to be timer 7 seconds. So this is the duration for which the dialogue begins. And here we'll add another 15 seconds because we added there 15 seconds. I told you there is a way without the calculation, but it's more complex than doing the calculations. So leave it like this. And in the dialogue, we are going to add, the cinematic mode is already on, so you don't need to reactivate it, but you must add a camera track. The camera track will be dialogue. We'll add also a camera cut. We want a cut onto the hoplite.
Prostagma.
So because he will do the talking. Or yes. And we'll also add a sound file name. I'll skip a line from the tutorial because I won't do everything that was said in the cinematic. So yeah, the Atlanteans, sir, they attacked the island. Yes. And we'll do animation. Set animation, something like this. Yes. We'll select the unit. And to see the animation you are going to do for the unit, you click View Animation. And you select Cinematic. And select anything from this. Now let's see the hoplite in action. Yeah, this one might be good. So you must copy the name as it is. Hop 08 Sir the Roge. Yes. And you quit. If I copied it as it is, it should work. If you make a simple spelling mistake, it won't work. So yeah. Also I add another one, so it will be, this one will be dialogue A. We'll add dialogue B. It will be a similar one, so I'll just copy it. So we have said 15 seconds, so I'll give this one, let's give it 15. So the hoplite speaks for 8 seconds, the general speaks for 15 seconds. Camera track, the same track. We won't do another track, so we'll delete it. The camera cut now will be on general Mythology. Why it is frozen? I think because we haven't finished this one. So you'll have to wait it out, or else your screen will be frozen. Yeah, so now we can move. We select the general, and the cut will be on the general. It will be something like this, so I think. Yeah, general. I don't believe it. And we'll set for him also an animation. So let's select our guy. No, let's do something from cinematic. Yes, this is the animation for I don't believe it. So we'll copy it. Mela X03 I don't. I think this is the thing you need to copy. Yes. I hope I don't mess this up. And yeah. So if everything is correct, it should work brilliantly. Yes, you see the animations are working. For the general, I think there is a typo, but it doesn't really matter. So as you can see, our animations are working. Our timing is perhaps a bit off. This is because I haven't checked run immediately. You either you must select run immediately or use the trigger with the timer. You wait an additional 3 seconds for it to wait the not run immediately. So when you don't select run immediately, the trigger usually waits about 3 seconds. So you have to take that into account. But everything we did has worked so far. So now I did a couple of things off camera, but I already taught you how to do this. They are a redundancy of what I taught you earlier. So I added dialogue C and dialogue D to basically complete the level. So they're a copy of dialogue A, dialogue B basically. Also, the reason why the general Mythology animation didn't work earlier, it is because in the set animation we have selected the hoplite as unit, not general Mythology, so I fixed that. Here we added a camera cut onto the hoplite, No.
Hetimos.
So it's embarrassing. It's onto Zoplight, and we gave a phrase to Zoplight, and the animation is same earlier because it looked good. And finally, we gave the General Millages a new animation and a new line. The Atlanteans have gone mad, sent word for our allies, etc. So this is it. And we also modified the duration of our track. So I think our track now lasts 33 seconds. If all our calculations are right, the cinematic should end at 40 seconds. Now, it is completely optional, but it is better if you let the player have the correct angle to play the level at the end of the cinematic. So what I mean by that is you go to the camera tracks and add a new track. Now you see where the dialogue finished, which point they finished. Now it's very annoying that you have to play it from the beginning, but we want to start from this angle, and we want the player to be positioned in the correct angle. So we'll add a camera track duration of only 2 seconds, and we'll add a waypoint. I did this just to be able to move the camera because we needed to play the full level to be able to do this. Now I'll click the minus sign and adjust the camera to its correct position, something like this. And we go to the camera, and not -2, it's 2. We name it and we'll delete this waypoint and make it the waypoint that we are looking currently. So it's not -2, it's 2. Why it's not playing? It should be. It's frozen at -2. So let's put it 2 like this way. Yeah. Something like this. So the player would be able to start from a good position. Now we'll add this final bit. So select run immediately, name it and the timer will be 40. The effect will be camera track and with nothing else. And this condition will make it 42. So it should be basically a complete cinematic. Let's see it in action. There are spelling mistakes, but I tapped it fast. So yeah, our cinematic is working. It's a decent cinematic. Now it's not the best because you must work more on it, but it's a decent one and I'm quite happy with it. Now I'll tell you some more functionalities you can add to your cinematic to make it a bit more professional. I already did a tutorial on this subject, but I didn't take into account the glitches that you have to endure. So I did a tutorial on how to make skippable cinematics in Age of Mythology, and I told you you had to use the build cinematic button. Now, there is some glitches that you have to endure. The build cinematic buttons plays basically your scenario twice. The first time it plays it in low quality, the second time it plays it in high quality, and after that you are able to skip your cinematic if you press the escape button. Now there is 2 things you have to take into account when you do this. The first thing is that if the player skips the cinematic and you have triggers that run after the time in which he skips the cinematic but before the cinematic ends, so it's between 0 and 40 seconds in our case, the triggers won't be executed if the player press skip. So it's that because when the player press skips, you see the timer show you the end of the cinematic. Like basically in our case it will show you 40. So it's like it has skipped all the triggers with the cinematic when you press escape. So be sure to put your triggers at the end of the cinematic. So at the end of the 40 seconds mark or before it, but then you have to make sure that you give them a higher priority. So here you click the priority high. Triggers like I'm talking about like set touch status or something like this. So did I put something high? Yes, so this one should be normal. We'll give a trigger run immediately, but we'll give it priority high, so it will be always set touch status, and that's anything medium infantry to be able to show it quickly. Yes, or you put them at the end of the cinematic, so the timer will be more than 40 seconds. And also, be sure to keep in mind the second thing you must keep in mind when you use build cinematic, that every time you do a change, you have to repress build cinematic, or else it won't be saved. So build cinematic is a pain if you want. Every modification you have to re-click build cinematic, and if your cinematic is more, let's say, than 1 minute, 2 minutes, it's very annoying. So when you want to press build cinematic, be sure to press it when all your changes are done. You can use playtest scenario anytime you want if you want to add changes, but build cinematic replays your cinematic twice for nothing. So basically only do it when you finished all your modifications. And after that, your cinematic should be able to be skipped, and all the changes will be confirmed. We have surpassed the 2 glitches that may occur. So we'll test our scenario. I think it's called test. And as you can see, set touch status trigger is working fine, and we have skipped our cinematic. You notice the timer has already skipped to 40-50 seconds, so be sure to keep in mind this thing. And every time you want to save your changes, you re-click build cinematic. So that was all I needed to show you in this tutorial. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, be sure to leave a like and comment if you have any questions about the whole cinematic process in Age of Mythology, and we'll see you next time for another tutorial. Goodbye.